Good morning, everyone. Great to see everyone here. Yesterday was a fabulous day at the event. I want to thank Resco for all the work that the team has been putting into this event and for putting so many great speakers on the stage here. It's really an honor to be part of it, and I'm excited to get today's event started. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jason Gumpert. I'm the editor at MSDW We are an independent news and information resource. We are a digital media company, which means we're really focused all online, and a lot of the data that I'm going to show you today is about digital trends and what's happening with our readers. We write for partners, we write for Microsoft customers as well. A lot of ISVs are in our audience as well. So I won't talk too much more about myself. You see me up here. But what I really want to do is talk, not just marketing, but I really want to focus on the performance side of what we're going to show you today. We have real bar charts. I know there was a more fun bar chart yesterday, but I have actual bar charts, I have actual pie charts, and we're going to get into it. We wanted to explore a few things today with data, right? We wanted to talk about where we see marketing trends going between Microsoft resellers and ISVs, how customers factor into that mix, because that's obviously important. And we'll be moving between some different questions. Some of them will be more interesting to you if you're a customer. Some of them will be, I think, more interesting to you if you're a Microsoft VAR, an SI, perhaps an ISV in the audience. And then we'll show some actual behavioral data too. So, what's really changed? We've run surveys over the last few years. We've changed a few things this year. So, and those are all based on our readers. So like our audience, we want to know what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're observing out in the world. What we're hearing from them is that the conference space is growing, right? And I think you probably have observed this if you're here. This is a fabulous one, but there's, I think, more pressure than ever from a marketing perspective to be at more events, and that's a really tough challenge. We're seeing more online engagement. I'm going to show you a couple of data points on that. Happily for us, I suppose. Yeah, we're glad to see that people are still engaging, and it's not just at in-person events. It's all year round. The pressure from Microsoft, and I think we heard a few mentions of this yesterday. The pressure from Microsoft, the interest from partners to get customers who are still on premises up into the cloud, it really continues. I feel like it's a steady sort of a march toward the cloud, obviously, but it's by no means complete. I'm not going to talk too much about AI, but I think the opportunity that forward-thinking technology leaders see there is huge, and I think that will factor in a bit into some of the data you're going to see. So let me start with webcast performance. This is really a chance to just share some actual behavioral data that we see from our readers out on our site in terms of what they're doing with us. So we run about 150 webcasts a year. We did 150 in sort of the period of late 2022 to late 2023, and then we measured that against the same period, 2023 to 2024, so ending about 5 or 6 months ago. So pretty current data, and what we saw was for the webcast that we ran, overall we saw 22% increase in registrants per session. So more people are engaging online with events, which I think, first of all, is nice to see from our perspective, but I think it also just points to the fact that online engagement is up, and I suspect if you compare that to other outlets, to other work that maybe individual companies are doing with their digital strategy, hopefully you're seeing something similar. I won't spend too much time on this slide. It's a little more detailed for sort of the marketers out there, but different types of formats that we're seeing, both fully live sessions and sessions that have some pre-recorded elements. We're seeing both of those types of events rising in popularity, rising in registrations. And then when it actually comes to people who sign up for events and just expect to see them after the fact, watch them on demand, watch the recording, those people viewing the recording are doing more of that this year than they were in past years as well. Another factor that we hear a lot or that we think about a lot is what kind of events are people coming to? Are you coming to see a product demo? Are you trying to learn about strategy and learn about a company's direction? Are you trying to just get educated on a core Microsoft product, for example? Do you want to just hear perspective from panelists on a theme, real experts in a field that you're trying to learn more about? Do you want to hear a customer story? When we look across those, or we segment by those different types of events, you can see on this column chart, variety, right? More people attend an educational session. I think that's a pretty consistent thing. We expect that a lot with our audience, that when it's like kind of pure education on how to use a particular feature or module of a Dynamics product, or how to get your skills, how to grow your skills with a Power Platform service. Those are going to draw the most attention. But what's nice to see, if you look at sort of the green line there, the attendance rates are pretty strong for all of them, and that was heartening to see this year. All right, so that's some of the sort of behavioral data and segmenting it a few different ways from our audience. What we also wanted to do was kind of get sentiment and get attitudes of different segments of our audience. And we think about, like I said, we write for the user audience, but we also write for Microsoft partners, and so not every piece of content on our site is for everybody, right? Some are really more interesting to you if you're an SI, some are more interesting to you if you're a customer trying to learn about sort of Microsoft roadmap, things like that. We wanted to know a few different things. We wanted to look at the relationship between ISVs and VARs. Obviously, it's just critically important to the ecosystem and how people are, sort of how how the customer experience is going to ultimately work out, right? We wanted to know what people think of AppSource. It's, everyone I think is familiar with AppSource, right? But it's one of those services or sites or destinations that people have mixed views on. So we wanted to know, for all the time and effort that goes into putting listings up there and sort of managing them, how's that working out? And then what do customers think when they look at the partners that they work with and the sort of ISV solutions that they invest in? How well are those partnerships working out, right? So we had a really nice response to this year's survey. This data just came out. You're one of the first groups to see it, and I'm glad to present it here. Over 200 responses across VARs and SIs, ISVs, and Microsoft customers. And so we asked them all different questions. Some of them were the same question, worded a little differently for each audience, right? And you can see on the right there how that broke out. So Business Central, folks who are interested in Business Central were the top, followed by Power Platform, which I was actually really glad to see. I think it just shows sort of the way that Power Platform has spread across all of our reader base, and I suspect sort of the broader Dynamics user base. Then you have F&O and customer engagement. Copilot Studio surprised me a little bit to see it up that high already, but perhaps that's a sign of the strength that Copilot Studio is already building up in this ecosystem. And then you see sort of the legacy products below there. What were the big findings? I'm going to move through them a bit quickly here, but there was one area where there's a really big mismatch in terms of views on demand generation between ISVs and VARs. We'll get to that. We'll hear a little bit about the sentiment of what VARs really want from their ISVs. I had some anecdotal thoughts about that, but what you'll see in the data is a little different, and some views on AppSource. So ISVs and VARs and the relationships that they form with each other. We asked ISVs how many VARs they're currently working with. Most of them, it's less than 30. I thought there would be, and then if you look at less than 100, it's almost everyone. So most ISVs that we asked are working with less than 100 partners. We asked VARs how many they'd like to work with. 10 or fewer, right? And I think that kind of makes sense if you think about the VAR's perspective, how many ISVs can they really manage, right? Some do work with more, and I think it really is going to depend on specific situations. We also know that ISVs pursue VAR relationships, obviously very valuable to them, but they're hoping to onboard 30 or fewer in the next year for the most part. Many are looking to onboard 10 or fewer. I think that speaks to maybe some expectations. And when you think about sort of how ISVs are pursuing VARs and how VARs sort of perceive that pursuit, I thought this would actually be a little more aggressive, but ISVs are telling us they're pursuing like 5 or fewer per month mostly. And that kind of lines up with what VARs are telling us as well. They're not getting that many inquiries, on a sort of per month basis. All right, so this is an interesting one, and the more I've thought about it, I know it's a bit of an eye chart, but the more I've thought about this one, the more thoughts I've had about it. We wanted to know what are some of the effective marketing techniques. How do VARs and SIs like to be marketed to by by ISVs, excuse me. How do VARs and SIs like to be marketed to by ISVs? So we took the same list, we asked it to ISVs and we asked it to VARs, what they thought for effective techniques. We sorted it by what ISVs think are the most effective, right? So right at the top, conferences, and then LinkedIn. VARs had a slightly, I mean, you can see the top 5 is not too badly mismatched, and that was my first take on this. But the more I thought about it, I mean, network referrals and email marketing come out on top for what VARs think is the most effective. What really might be different there between the two is that conferences are probably the most expensive sort of outlay for ISVs if you're going after an individual sort of marketing activity, right? And like I said, with the proliferation and sort of the growth in the number of events regionally and sort of internationally, that can be a real challenge, I would say, for an ISV marketing team. How many events they really want to be at to sort of achieve those goals that they're setting for themselves. LinkedIn is sort of the same story. I mean, there's huge potential, obviously, to build relationships, to build awareness on LinkedIn, but you can do it in sort of high spend mode or in more sort of measured modes. And so that's a real question, I think, for marketers to be asking, as it supports what VARs say is the most important, which is building networks, having referrals through those networks, and using email marketing to reach them. Just a few comments here. I won't spend too much time, but as you would expect, VARs don't want their time wasted, right? You know, if you're an ISV and you're reaching out to partners to try to expand your network, you do need to be responsive, and you need to show that you're really listening. All right, here's a bit of the demand gen mismatch that I was talking about. So we asked partners, how often are you getting leads from your ISVs, and if you do get them, are you going to act on them? Yes, they're going to act on them. They want those. They want to know if an ISV has a prospect that they could collaborate with, but they're rarely to never getting leads from their ISVs. They report, or at least for their established ISV partners. But when you ask ISVs, are you sharing leads with your VARs? They say, yeah, we're very likely to share our leads with established partners. So on the one hand, we have ISVs who kind of acknowledge this and say they're very likely to do it, and we know ISVs are investing heavily in all sorts of marketing techniques, right? They're going to conferences, they're investing in LinkedIn, they're investing in digital marketing. So, I mean, all this activity is going on, but yet VARs are saying they're not really getting what you would expect. And that raises a lot of questions. I don't have all the answers today, but I think it's something that we want to certainly watch for in the future, and I think it's something that requires a little more research. I mean, maybe I would love to hear if people have other theories on that, if you want to put that into the questions, if we have time for it. Let's move on to AppSource. So AppSource is one of those sites that I think, in my opinion, maybe hasn't reached the potential that Microsoft promised it would, right? But at the same time, ISVs, anyone with a services or product listing is putting it in there. They're spending the time to manage it, to at least get it posted and make it attractive, optimize it. There's plenty of training out there and best practices. But who's really looking at those? So we asked ISVs. So who are you hearing from when you put a listing up on AppSource for one of your solutions? Most commonly, they're hearing from customers. The second most common type of inquiry they're getting is from VARs, and finally, it's Microsoft inquiries. And Microsoft inquiries, I think, can really go across different channels, right? They're not just looking at AppSource, they might be looking across other solution listings. What's interesting though, even though VARs, ISVs say they're hearing more from customers, VARs say they're more likely to actually follow through on those AppSource inquiries. If they see something interesting, they're more likely to reach out. I think that may be the next logical question there for me, or point is that I think VARs perhaps are a little more active. They're a little more, but maybe there's fewer of them on there. So, you know, comments from VARs, they're all over the place, unfortunately. Users didn't have a lot to say about what they think about AppSource when they took our survey. But some love it, or some find it useful as far as VARs go. Some say they rarely visit AppSource. They'll only go there kind of after they've tried a product, which I think is a very interesting pattern or direction to go in, that they'll look at a product, then they'll go look on AppSource, maybe they'll look for reviews there perhaps, or they'll just use it as a way to get in touch through a sort of official channel with the software publisher. All right, so the other area that we wanted to look at is like, what does it really take if you're an ISV? What does it take to make your VAR partners happy, right? Like what do they want from you in terms of support? What do they want in terms of incentives? I had some preconceived ideas on what I thought the answers would be here, but I was a little bit surprised because when it comes to, well, first we asked in pre-sales scenario. So if you're a customer and you're hearing from a partner and they're showing you not just Microsoft solutions, but they're also showing you solutions that come from a publisher, from an ISV, what the partner really wants when they're in this scenario with you is they want to be able to show you a good solid demo environment. They want some pre-sale support from the vendor, from the ISV who's helping them kind of position the solution in the context of a D365 or in the context of a bigger maybe Power Platform environment. Account executives fall way down that list. And again, here I think ISVs have a real challenge because different VARs approach showing and demoing ISV solutions differently. Some just want some basic starter support, and then they're often running on their own. They want that initial help. Others want everything all the time. They want they want account executives coordinating with them. They want demo materials. They want all of it. They want none of it. I mean, it's really going to be a job for you as an ISV if you're here trying to think about what you can best do to support them. We also asked how important it is to have financial incentives if you're selling an ISV solution. This is where I thought I had heard that ISVs really don't, VARs don't really put too much importance on those sort of incentives and on margin for the ISV solution sales, but that was not true. That's not true from what we're seeing here. Those funds help to keep their staff trained. They help to sort of show commitment. They help them continue to invest in promoting that solution and make it worth their while to keep it in their portfolio, right? We also want to look at that kind of response by different products, right? Because a Business Central partner is in fact quite different from a CE partner or even a finance and supply chain management partner. The labels on the left there are missing, but I can tell you that top bar is Business Central, and there you'll see that the margins are I think the most important there. Over 50%, actually over 60% of Business Central partners told us that was the case. The middle and lowest bars there are for F&O and CE, and I think you see a little less importance put on those sort of incentives, but still important. And then when you talk about the next topic, which is having a strong partner program, again, it's very important to partners. They want to know that the ISVs are going to work closely with them. They want to see support after the sales response. They want to know that they're going to be responsive if they have an opportunity. One person wrote, "That's even more important than margin is knowing that they have that quick response." And I think the greatest fear, as the last comment there points out, is that if they need support, if they need to escalate a ticket or something like that they can do that as well as they can with Microsoft, that they have those channels to go through on behalf of their customers. Okay, so a little bit of customer sentiment to share with you. From a customer perspective, you're building a solution maybe with a trusted partner. It includes ISV solutions. You have a real task ahead of you, because I think every time you're adding a vendor or adding like a brand or a logo into that solution, you're probably thinking to yourself, how much more complexity am I putting onto my solution? I'm adding value, certainly. It's always critical and needed functionality, but what is this really going to mean long term? So they want to know that those ISV solutions those ISV relationships are strong, right? Extremely important or very important. Almost no one doesn't care. And if you look at it across products, again, I apologize, the labels got dropped off there, but Business Central is that top bar. Interestingly enough, Business Central customers tell us that there's a little bit less importance on that ISV VAR collaboration. And I have some theories about that. It's something that we'll have to look at more in the future to really understand why Business Central perhaps customers don't see it as quite as important as perhaps F&O is the middle bar and CE is the bottom bar. There it's really critical, and maybe that goes to the complexity of the solution and the amount of reliance that those sort of larger customers are likely to have on their partner. I think some Business Central users, from what I've seen, are a little more self-sufficient and maybe willing to sort of tackle some of those challenges themselves, right? All right, so moving right along, we wanted to look a little more at how ISVs market to users, and this gets into sort of the realm of content and what people are consuming, right? So we asked, and this is something we've asked this year, and we've asked it in past years, right? What channels do customers rely on? Where do they get the information that they're looking for, throughout the year? I'm glad, so we asked this to users and to VARs, sort of where do users look? We asked VARs, where do users look? We asked users, where do you look? What channels do you rely on? Community user groups are right at the top of the list. No surprise there. They've been serving a critical role in this space for years. And if you haven't been involved in any user groups, either locally or nationally or internationally, it's definitely something to check out. There's several good groups. Some of them are organic and local. Some of them are a little more organized. But they're a tremendous place for users to connect. Obviously, it's nice to see that independent editorial does get near the top of the list. So we're glad to continue providing that support. And then you see a whole list of other areas that we asked about, and users value expert blogs. They value ISV's websites to gain information. They're going to search engines, perhaps no surprise there. And how well are VAR's perceptions of this matched up? Not terribly, but probably they are underestimating those top three. We asked the same thing last year, just to give a bit more perspective here, and not too much change. It's really consistent, which I think indicates that our audience in particular, their preferences are changing slowly, right? So expert blogs and ISV websites are kind of going up the list a bit. Microsoft's websites or Microsoft's properties are going down the list just a bit, not huge movements there. YouTube seems to be growing, which is no surprise. I mean, there's tons of really strong content these days on YouTube. And before I leave you here and maybe take a couple questions, I want to end on this real eye chart of a bar graph here. But this, I think, actually will lend itself to what I know about some of our upcoming presenters. When we ask about, so we're talking about sort of different sources on the previous slide, user groups, editorial sites. You see podcasts down near the bottom. But what's interesting here is when you ask customers sort of what they value at different stages of a solution research process that when they're looking to buy, all of a sudden some things change very, very quickly, and the numbers and the view becomes very different. Podcasts go right to the top when you look at the most popular content type for educating yourself. Podcast that we have one coming up here. So they're really valuable, and it makes sense, right? If you're kind of in the early information gathering stages, you care about podcasts, you care about sort of high-level views from ebooks and white papers, buying guides, all the things that you would kind of expect. And then for that sort of darker blue line, that's sort of the middle phase, I guess you would call it, of solution research and before our decision's been made. And the preferences change completely at that point. It goes into product brochures, and it goes into buying guides and video demos and walkthroughs, the things you really need as you get closer, right? And then in that sort of making a final decision stage, those things that are unpopular for the research and high-level education stage are all of a sudden the most popular. I think there's a ton to mine out of this. I really don't have the time to do it now. But that's it. And just to leave you with a couple of conclusions, ISVs have a lot of ways that they need to think about this. They have challenges in leads, they have challenges in VAR relationships, and the pressure there is very real. VARs expect a lot out of their ISVs, and rightly so. They're trying to make the best possible solutions for their customers. And customers know that ISV solutions have a major impact. I think this event is great evidence of that. I mean, how important building a solution with Microsoft technology and specialized expert capabilities on top of that really is. So with that, I can take a couple questions. Thank you so much for your time and for being here with me.